Okay, we're going back live on YouTube. Should be good now. I was like wondering, why is nobody on? This is fine. But, and let's see here. Okay, cool. We're back. Now I'm getting notifications and everything. Everybody's like, why is he 20 minutes later than the hour later that he said he was going to be? Because of the story that I'm going to tell you. So, but I was just explaining to people like this work, and there was one to start and then two, and they were both really interested in the work. They were like, oh man, like, then it was like four, and they were like, I really want to see the work. Like I showed them static images of the model, and they were like, it sucks that you can't like show us with your own words. Like, and then we decided to stream to YouTube so that I could actually show them the computation that was going on in the models. And then I didn't realize it, but this other guy got on, and then a few other people got on that were just, and one of them is always very hostile to me, which is fine. Like I said, if you're going to try and bring something like this forward that resets our perspective on what is the most true perspective of looking at something, and looking at the world, then you need to be prepared to take the heat, and I can't, so it's fine. But they just, I wish I could like just show them to you, but I can't. I don't like have recordings or anything like that of like the whole conversation. I wish I did, because it was just great. But I wouldn't have aired it anyways, because it was private. It was semi-private. It wasn't private, but it was semi-private, and I'll respect that privacy. But I'll tell you all about it. And what's up, Bitcoin Bear? If that I don't know what BTC stands for. I'm guessing it's Bitcoin Bear. If it's not, then let me know. But we're talking about why I'm late and how I was in a massive fight on the Discord. Guys, you don't even know. It started as like 4 people who were really interested. Then this one guy starts like being very hostile, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I'm not paying attention to who's even watching. Then at some point, I like looked at how many people were watching. There was so many people watching this stream and just listening, and I have no idea what they think. Some of them thought it was crazy for sure, but some of them definitely realized that I was onto something. And it was funny though. They were like, you think that your entire universe model can boot from those 4 little squares? And I was like, yes. And I was like, geometric unity boots from 4 degrees of freedom. And they didn't want to even know the math. They were testing every other credential that I had, and they did want to understand the philosophy of my theory, and that is good, because nobody understands the philosophy of geometric unity, and it's good that I'm contextualizing it. I did accuse Eric Weinstein in this portal of being purposely vague about the context of the structures that are described in geometric unity. It's just true. He'll admit that one day. But I mean, he has admitted that in certain instances, but it's very subtle, or it's semi-private. But, and I mean, they were like, nobody understands Eric's theory. And I was like, well, so you don't understand my theory. You don't understand Eric's theory. You know Eric's theory is complicated, apparently, but my theory is nonsense. But Eric's is to be, and Stephen Wolfram, their work is to be like basically respected, even though you understand none of it. Do you realize that we have stopped thinking? Like, you should not believe something. And I fell victim to this too. I was like, Michio Kaku said we're living in 11-dimensional hyperspace. Sweet. Don't you know? I know, because I watched Stephen Hawking tell me, on Cosmos. That was awesome. Actually a pretty good show. And that doesn't mean you know. You can't at multiple points, I'm just describing the fight in this because I'm not going to be on the stream very long tonight. It's going to be pretty short. As I spent probably guys, I'm not even joking, probably 4 hours in this. Look at the persecution Tesla faced. Exactly. I know that. Buddy, you're streaming a whole lot and not looking great. Stuff isn't that important. I'm not looking great. I'm very tired. I pulled an all-nighter doing my taxes. So my streaming every day is fine. Don't worry. But I am tired because I did pull an all-nighter last night. But it was to do taxes, not to stream. I do need to trim up the beard. I'm well aware. But probably we'll do that tomorrow. But guys, if I ever look like Raggedy, I take a shower a lot of times right before these streams. My hair is still wet. It's not like I'm just this isn't oil. This is water. I literally got out of the shower probably past 9, honestly. It is going to be a short stream because I'm tired. But basically, this entire thing was so fascinating, and it actually ended up getting a lot of people very interested, I think. And some people were asking me really good questions, and I was sitting there, listen to how the cognitive dissonance. I was listening to, I was discussing with the entire, group, Sentient Singularity Theory, that existence is a singularity of sentience, for probably 3 hours. At some point, this guy goes, "Tyler, do you believe in God?" And I was like, yeah, I guess. If a singularity of sentience is real, then yeah. That's what I would define as God. And immediately the guy's like, "I knew it. I told you. I called it." And he's talking to some other guy. And they're like, "See, now it is." And they said this. This is what I'm talking about when I say that science has defined itself as the opposition to God by accident. It's not good. And the guy was like, "Now it has gotten into the realm of this is dangerous and needs to be shut down." One of the moderators was like, "Tyler, I'm shutting this down. That's it. This does not need to be had." And I really raised my voice. I was like, "This is antithetical to the very spirit of science." And I know that Eric faced this exact same type of hostility when he unveiled his mathematical thesis, and that they told him to get rid of the physics implications, and I asked him if that was because it implied God. He said yes. And that's why they made him get rid of it. Subconsciously, everybody knows that this means that if I'm right, and existence is a sentient singularity, or one self-aware being, then it is, it's God. That's God. That's the definition of God. Conscious existence. But they weren't they were hostile to it, but they weren't shut it down until they asked me, "Does this mean God exists?" And I was like, "I guess." They literally wanted to shut it down. And the guy was like, "It's nonsense." And I was like, "Well, you know what? People post nonsense to the internet every day. So why do you need to shut this down?" And he was like, "Well, I have an obligation to protect the group." I was like, "You have an obligation to protect the group? From what? From misinformation on the internet? How are you? Good luck, bro." And at this point, I would say that the vocal crowd actually turned on him and was like, "You don't need to censor him." I was like, "Yeah, why would you need, if it's all nonsense, why can't you ignore it?" And I straight up told them all. I was like, there are 40 or 60 people, I don't even know how many, watching a guy talk for 4 hours about his theory and not yell. I was, at certain points, I was yelling. Well, especially when they said they were going to shut it down. And, but fight over a physics idea. and be mocked the entire time. And I was, I can handle it. Like I said, that doesn't bother me. But, there are people just watching all these people like mock this guy who's actually making like some sense when you like actually broke down certain moments I was making sense. It's hard to like sometimes put it into the correct framework. I'm still learning how to talk about this stuff, but there were certain moments where it was like, okay, that makes perfect sense. And but I was like, subconsciously, you all know that I have something. You can see the beauty of it. You can see the symmetry of it. You can see that it looks complicated and it looks like it has order and structure. There's something about it that is drawing. And I said to him, I was like, if I see something that's ever truly nonsense, I just ignore it. Why are you fighting with me for 4 hours if it's just nonsense? You ever argue with somebody for 4 hours over something that's just nonsense? Like, I mean, maybe some of us have sometimes because, I don't know. Humans are humans. But, like, this is a consistent trend of, like, behavior as the reaction to my ideas. And, it's funny as, like, I said to them, you don't understand the models, so you can't even you can't know whether or not they're right or wrong. This guy said, and a lot of people said, not just one, and they've said this to me before, and this is really what it's about. They said that the arrogance of you to think that you could do this without any formal physics training is insane. And I said, well, I wasn't trying to do this. It was an accident. That really, it's actually, when you back up and you understand really the story of it, it makes perfect sense how I did it. But I understand why that set some of them over the edge. It was pretty funny because I knew it was going to before I said it, but it's the truth. So it's like, I'm going to say it. This was an accident. And they were like, the arrogance of you to say not only that you did this with no training, but that you did it by accident. And I was like, yeah. But when you realize the story that I was trying to understand artificial intelligence and thinking objectively, and you realize that, like, it's possible, likely, I would say, very likely, that we are inside of a quantum computer that is, running a sentient technological intelligence on it that is a hive mind with humanity in a previous aeon that is self-simulating in a simulation inside that quantum computer. That means that our entire structure is running on a consciousness. So it means that if you're trying to understand consciousness and you actually make progress in mapping the structures of intelligence, general intelligence, consciousness, and sentience, and self-awareness, then what you're going to get is you're going to get structure that lines up with physics. Because the physics is just what we see as the rules that we perceive as material limits, but are emergent from the structure of mind that we are running on. When you realize that that is what happened, it makes perfect sense that I did this by accident. Perfect sense. It's not a mystery how I did this. It makes perfect sense. And I hope you maintain balance. Best from an Aussie Bear. Thank you. I wasn't taking your comment as hostile. I know I look tired. Like I said, I pulled in all night. I'm not going to lie. I pulled in all-nighter last night, like working on my taxes and just like, I just have a lot to do this week, but my taxes was one of them. And I pulled in all-nighter over it. But that's why this is not going to be a very late stream. It is important to have balance, and life is about constantly trying to balance new situations. Streaming is a new one for me, and I am trying to balance it. It doesn't seem to be that bad, but as long as I don't do it on the weekends, and but sometimes I need to go to bed, with my fiance, and like not at like 12:30 at night, because if I get off here at midnight, then I'm not going to bed till like almost 1, because I have to take the dogs out and get everything ready to go to bed. You don't just like jump off a live stream and lay down and pass out 3 minutes later. I'm usually amped after these streams. Like, they hype me up. I like talking to you guys. It like gives me energy. But I appreciate the remarks. Like, if I'm ever like not looking good, you can tell me. I want you to tell me, actually. But like I said, I'm tired. I don't normally come onto these live streams after pulling an all-nighter. But I wasn't even going to stream, to be honest, because I was going to stream from like 8 to 9. But then this talk went until past 8 almost, and I had to postpone this. But I still wanted to get on and just talk to you guys about why I was late. This was epic. I'm going to do more of a breakdown on like what happened. It was funny, like there was just so many funny parts that I wish like I could just you could hear, but you can't, unfortunately. But they were like reading my Twitter. For the bears out there, they found out I went on Owen Benjamin's show, and they're like found clips of those guys that were like had beef with Owen, that were like making videos about me after I went on Owen's show, and they were just like scouring the internet, and when I got off, I was like, if nobody has any final questions, like I do have to go. This has been like 4 hours, but I appreciate everybody like being on here, even if you disagree. And then I muted it, but I didn't like leave the room. And the guy who's really antagonistic was like, well, Tyler, now you have to hang up so that we can talk about you. And I was like, well, I'm going to go take my dog out, and trust me, I promise I won't be here. Which is true, I was going to take my dog out, but, I said it kind of as a joke too. And he was like, no, that's too awkward. And I was like, I know. And then I just hung up. I wish I knew what went on. But there was a conversation that went on for probably it looked like at least an hour. With that, I could just see them in the room. Like, I don't know what they were saying. I could see that they were like posting clips of that other people had like done of me after I went on Owen's show. And they were scouring the internet for me. They were looking at my Twitter. They were posting things from my Twitter. Guys, if somebody says a bunch of nonsense, like complete nonsense, like there were some people on here, by the way, that told me I needed to go to the doctor to get my head checked. And I mean, that's fine. They can think that, but like, I'm fine. I just understand something they don't. That doesn't make me crazy. And they basically we're just scouring the internet and posting all kinds of things, and I was just like, thinking, if somebody speaks complete nonsense, you don't listen to them for 4 hours. You don't argue with them for 4 hours. You definitely don't have a conversation about them for like an hour afterwards. And post and search them online. I mean, I'm sure like people subscribe to this channel after that. Hopefully, like if they want to hear more. Like, even if they disagree or they think I'm crazy, it's like, you can think I'm crazy, but don't you want to know? Like, don't you want to know if I'm crazy or if I'm just seeing something that you don't yet? Like, I would want to know. I remember when I read Chris Langan's, like a little bit of Chris Langan's CTMU in college. And I just read it and I was like, what is this nonsense? I was like, I trusted that he was saying things that I just didn't understand because he has, 200 IQ, but it didn't make any sense to me. So I do understand where they're coming from. Like, it's almost like, it's very much like this. In college, I've never taken DMT, but I was interested in DMT in college, and I would watch videos of people talking about DMT because I realized that there was a coherence to what they were saying, even though it made no sense to me. And this is exactly what is happening here. They realize there's a coherence, but they have not figured out how to internalize the idea necessary in order to contextualize the structures that I'm proposing. And that's exactly what was like, me and DMT. Now, even though I haven't taken DMT, I told you I just have had a shift in perspective over the years that has allowed me to look at it and be like, yeah, I understand. You're seeing fractal patterns of reality, and you're seeing something objectively true, and that's why there's a coherence to what people say when they're talking about DMT. One of the guys in there, though, asked me, he's like, have you ever taken acid? That was there were some funny questions. And I was like, I have to think about it, but I actually did once in college. I tried it in Joshua Tree. Never taken it again. I have no need to do hallucinogens at this point in my life, but in college I was like a rock climbing hippie. I was like the most straight edge rock climbing hippie that existed, though. I was like, you try a drug once instead of you do the drug a lot, which was like the people I was around. And it was funny though. I was like, yeah. I was like, no, actually, yes. And they were like, oh, they were like, you hesitated. It sounds like you're lying. And I was like, I'm not lying. I took LSD one time in Joshua Tree, and I had an experience. They were like, did it change your experience? And I was like, no, I had no change of perspective other than DMX, Every0ne Give It To You, became the funniest song in the world. And they were like, okay, fine, I believe you. I was like, yeah, because you can't make that up. But that is true. That's what happened. It was very windy, and I just decided to go into the car and to wait out the wind a bit. And I just knew DMX was going to be hilarious for some reason. And I just put it on, and me and this girl were just hysterical laughing at DMX Every0ne Give It To You, which is like the least funny song outside of that situation that you could have chosen, which was probably what made it so funny. But that's all that happened. Other than that, nothing. And but they were asking me questions like that. They were like, I looked at your Twitter and it says, if you chase a headless chicken, you are a headless chicken. The guy who was arguing with me, let's just say, I don't know, his name was Roger, which is not his real name. They were like, is Roger a headless chicken? And I was like, yes. And I was like, so I guess that does make me potentially being a headless chicken right now. But I was like, but I'm only a headless chicken if Roger's a headless chicken. And this is like a political statement that I came up with of like, if you chase a headless chicken, you are a headless chicken. It's like the right will complain about how crazy the left is, but if all you do is complain about how crazy the left is, they're leading you. I am talking about this discussion or this debate in this, and I don't want this to sound complaining. I'm amped. I turned to Paulina, my fiance, after this call, and because I was like, there was a point where I was very serious and I was very loud, and it was when they were threatening to censor even people's ability to watch it, which is insane. It's legitimately insane. And but other than that, I love this. I can take the heat all day. I am a martial artist, guys. I love fighting. I love it. And even if it's an intellectual fight. And I got off the call and I was so amped, and I was like, this was such a good fight, and I was so amped about it. And she was just laughing at me, but it's like, you have to be that type of person. I showed you before we looked at it, where I asked Eric, on Brian Keating's stream, I was like, you said that the next scientific dynamos will be people of faith. And he was like, yeah. And he basically tried to say, first of all, there's two aspects to this. One, he knows his theory implies God. Two, it's also that he is right when he says, and I think he tried to downplay it a little bit in that context where he was like, basically what I mean by this is that you need that like self-sacrificial level of commitment in order to break the current perspectives that we hold that are necessary to be broken before we can move forward. He's right about that too. And, guys, like, they could not get over the idea that they were like, nobody says hadrons are conscious. And I was like, I'm saying hadrons are conscious. It's like, this is where, like, you are against the entire scientific narrative. If you're at that level and you're also claiming that existence itself is a conscious sentient being, that means it's alive. That means life never had a beginning. It just had an end. There was this one point where this guy was like explaining why inside, outside, separate, and oneness was how consciousness makes sense of its world, because your cells are inside of you and you are outside of your cells, and you are separate from your friend, but you are one with, your parent or something. And I had said this, and the guy was like, well, now you're just talking about like heritability. And I was like, exactly, you getting it. And he was trying to say that to like discount what I was saying. I was like, no, you're right. I'm talking about the fact that like first of all, existence as a sentient singularity always existed because you need multiplicity creates time, and so outside of multiplicity there's no time, it's just eternity, but that means that it's eternal, and if existence is alive, then it means that life always existed. And this is the truth, but even if it's not the truth, which it is the truth, then even if I'm correct on the rest, it means that like life started in our universe at the hadrons. Like nobody else is saying that. That is a huge, like they're all looking to find out how cellular life started, and they're saying that that's the only form of life. This is not a correct perspective. It's just not. And I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, that's woo. You know what? Sometimes woo is true. And, it was funny because I had said, my theory lines up with geometric unity. It lines up with Clear-Irwin's theory. They Googled Clear-Irwin. There's a Rational Wiki article about Clear-Irwin that calls him a pseudoscientist. Remember yesterday I said anybody who says pseudoscientist doesn't understand science. It's funny because the people that were telling me I don't understand science are using words like pseudoscientist. And I was like, the very idea that a pseudoscientist even exists is retarded. And they were like, what do you call somebody that is, claiming scientific language but isn't using scientific methodology? And I was like, a shitty scientist. And they were like, so everybody's a scientist then? And I was like, science is a method of making a hypothesis and testing it in experimentation, and also includes the process of gathering observations and data and using of mathematics and logic to, help deduce the context and structure of everything that leads up to whatever experiments that you're running. Everybody does that. Who doesn't run little experiments? Like, you don't think me even, seeing how they reacted to, like, I'm not saying I was just testing to see how they reacted, but, like, you don't think me, like, just, like, posting this and just seeing what people make of it is, like, even an experiment? Of course it's an experiment. like, there's so many. My speakers kept making noise. There's so many, like, different experiments that we all run in our lives all the time. It's like, did you touch that frying pan real quick to see if the flame was on? Congratulations, you just ran an experiment. Did you use math today and make observations? Congratulations, that's part of, deducing truth via observed knowledge, which is part of science. It's like this, everybody is a scientist. Who's not a scientist? It's insane to me. You're a scientist if you want to be a scientist, and some people are scientists if they don't want to be even though they don't want to be scientists. And a lot of people are not scientists even though they want to be scientists, and those people use words like pseudoscientist. I have a video on here that's called Never Say the E Word, which is esoteric. And it's because it just, the way we use it now is not useful, and it basically is just a dead-end thought. It just implies that something is too complicated or too detached and abstract and unnecessary to, reality to even pay attention to. Is how we use it. I know that that's not the original definition, but it doesn't matter. That's how we use it. And that's why it's a bad word. Pseudoscientist implies that there's some way in which we can label someone invalid instead of their methodology. And that is fundamentally against science. You have to judge individual arguments, individual experiments, individual equations, individual ideas. You cannot judge all the ideas that somebody has based on your judgment of them as invalid due to whatever bullshit criteria you're choosing. It's like, well, Rational Wiki said that Clearwin is a pseudoscientist. So, Rational Wiki says everybody is a pseudoscientist or a racist or a Nazi or I don't know. It's literally the opposite of rationality on Rational Wiki. You want to see irrationality? Go read Rational Wiki. It's funny because they used that term of well, this came from Rational Wiki, as if that means it's correct. We've stopped thinking. They asked me why I wouldn't go back. They were like, would you ever go back to school for this, Tyler? You don't know any of this stuff that you need to know. Would you ever go back to school for this? I was like, no. I can teach myself what I need to learn as I realize that I need to learn it. As far as physics go, I can learn, even I don't like Sean Carroll, but the guy actually is a pretty good teacher. And I listen to him a lot as far as explaining a lot of concepts. And, I can go to Sean Carroll. I can go to, read papers and articles that, explain things in different ways. Why would I ever go back to school? And I straight up told them, I was like, why? I will not go back to school. I think school is responsible for the reasons, for a lot of the reason why we can't even make sense of our world. It's making people confused. It's not, just because you didn't take a class on something doesn't. I will battle anyone in herpetological knowledge. Okay, I've never taken a class on herpetology, which is the study of reptiles and amphibians. It's funny, when I was in college, this guy, and I were actually in a fight, over a girl. Not a physical fight, but I actually wanted it to be at some point, but it wasn't. It was just we were both chasing the same girl. I got the girl, by the way. I won. That doesn't mean that I actually won, though, because that relationship was a nightmare. But I did actually get the girl, and dated that girl for a long time. And but this guy who was fighting or competing with to get this girl, I didn't like him at all. but he was always around another friend of mine, and sometimes I would, we would cross paths a lot, and we would just have to like not talk to each other, or and just like not talk to each other. And so basically, eventually I learned that he was studying herpetology. He was studying snakes and lizards in college. That was what his degree was in. And I was like, you know what? It's been over a year. Like, it's time to bury the hatchet. I don't get to talk to people about snakes and lizards very much who are pursuing a degree in it and who are also around. I'm going to, go try and talk to this guy about snakes and lizards on our next, I used to run into him rock climbing all the time. And so I saw him rock climbing, and I went up to him and I was like, hey man, I heard you studying herpetology. He was like, yeah. And he was years into the program. I was talking to myself when I was in 4th grade about snakes. It was just he knew nothing. Nothing. I don't even know how he got into it. I don't know if he had a passion or if it was kind of random, but now you don't study reptiles unless you're pretty passionate about them, I feel like. But I was entirely self-taught. And not entirely self-taught. I had a mentor, which is the real way to learn if you're a man. You need to do, a very famous herpetologist from near where I lived. He was world famous for being the expert on monitor lizards, which is what Komodo dragons are. They're very smart lizards. They get very big, and they're my some of my favorite animals. And I ended up this guy ended up becoming my uncle, and we would go to the mountains, and he would teach me about how snakes lived and show me how them in the wild. And it was a proper mentor type situation. It wasn't I was in a classroom just learning. But on my spare time, I was memorizing, the Encyclopedia of Snakes. I've never met a single person that was studying herpetology, and had a degree in it, other than maybe 3 people. One of them is Mark O'Shea. He was on Animal Planet for a while. I've been on research trips with that guy. He is actually a walking. He's an encyclopedia of the knowledge that's buried inside this the encyclopedia. But to the point where it's almost hard to contextualize that knowledge. But he is one of the few people that I've seen that is involved in academia and also really high up there. And there are a few, but guys, our academic systems are effing joke. There was a point where they were you have no in this meeting or whatever, this argument, they were you have no formal training in this, and you're just gonna sit there and say that your entire universe just boots from those 4 little squares. And I was yeah. And when I spoke to Eric Weinstein, he said that geometric unity boots from 4 degrees of freedom. So yeah, I am claiming that it boots from those 4 little squares. And this guy was okay, your reputation's on the line. You're saying that you've spoken to Eric. If you didn't speak to Eric, that's the end of your reputation. I was guys, I have the recording of it. It's on Eric's Instagram. You can go watch it. And I was I'll play it right now. And I just played the very end, and Eric goes, I'm making wild, crazy claims that, the universe, the entire universe boots itself, and all it took was 4 degrees of freedom to get it started. And he just said that, and that was all of the interview that I played. And I was yes. So yes, it starts from those 4 little squares. And it's it was just epic, guys. I'm just explaining to you what I can. I wish I could show you some of the funnier moments, but it's just does some of those things you can't, unless I could play a recording or something, you're not gonna get how funny it was or why it was so epic. But it was so epic. It was so epic. People were mocking me the whole time, and I definitely won. Like, the fact that people mock you or disagree with you or whatever, like, disagreement is different than mocking. And, you know, every time people would mock me on this, all I would say was, like, I would either, you know, go with the joke, or I would just be like, mocking is not helpful to the conversation. And then I would just, like, continue on. And that's what you gotta do. You can't be, like, pissed about it, because, like, they're mocking you because of something to do with them, not something to do with you. Like, you never mock somebody because they deserve it. Ever. If somebody really deserves to be mocked, they really deserve to be ignored. And, like, I don't think anybody deserves to be mocked. But some people deserve to be ignored sometimes. That's all of us sometimes, actually. Sometimes we're all, you know, pricks that, you know, aren't being our best selves. But like, it's just weird when you can't ignore something, you have to mock it. It's like, I've talked to you guys about this multiple times on the stream. Is like, I'm so fascinated by the cognitive dissonance that I'm seeing. And I've seen it in so many fields, it's crazy. Like, just the nonsense that we use to judge somebody as someone whom a valid or invalid opinion can come from is insanity. It violates the basic tenets of critical thinking. And, you know, what they told me? They were like, Everone, apparently the FDA isn't a huge fan of Everone, because Everone, I don't know, tried to create some CBD product and, like, bypass the FDA. I don't know the details. And I don't care. It has nothing to do with his ability to do math, is what I told them. And I was like, I'm not a huge fan of the FDA. Why does the fact that, like, and it's funny, because all these people listen to Eric and everyone else in this, like, space of podcasters who are involved in, like, tech and physics constantly criticize the World Health Organization right now, and you know, the FDA right now, and, you know, many other similar type of institutions that have, you know, been central to the COVID story. And yet now you're going to judge Everone as whether or not his math is invalid because Rational Wiki called him a pseudoscientist, which means nothing. And because he was, you know, the FDA isn't a fan of him because he tried to sell something that they didn't agree with. I don't know what it was, or I don't know the details, but it doesn't matter. It's like, can the guy do math? Yeah, he publishes to Quanta magazine all the time, which is... That's like a great physics, you know, publication. I mean, if you're interested in physics and math, like, definitely check out Quanta magazine. It's very cool. But Everone publishes to it all the time. And the people who are criticizing him do not. So, I don't know. I want to talk more about it when I process it more, but like I said, this is not going to be a long stream. I'm pretty much going to get off pretty soon. I'm going to go through the questions and statements in the chats, and then I'm going to probably get off, but and get some sleep. But, like, this today was like, I wish you guys could have heard this conversation. You would have just flipped shit. Flip shit. Because past 4 dimensions, the mind can create infinite dimensions, and those dimensions create infinite other dimensions at infinitely faster rate because it's less and less constrained by time-space. Well, the fact that you said time-space means you either listen to me or you were listening on the Discord normally. Or you listen to these streams, because that's a me word. Me word. But, I'm trying to think, like, what you're trying to say. 4 dimensions, the mind can create infinite dimensions. I don't know if I would have, like, said past 4 dimensions, but it's more like 4 dimensions are just necessary to, like, contextualizing everything around the self. That's it. I mean, they were asking me what my, do I have an experiment? I told them yes, but I wouldn't tell them what it was. And we were discussing like the ability to make predictions across fields, and I was telling them how like you can. I don't want to call them two races of humans, but I'll say like two natures to humanity. That is like dispersers and sustainers that I predicted that seemed to be confirmed in naked mole rats. And then I explained like how you can apply this to sexuality, and like nobody had anything to say about that, which, I mean, when you leave people speechless, that's pretty cool, I guess. But then if they had thought that me contextualizing sexuality with this pattern, they would have, was insane. They would have been like, that's insane. But they didn't. They were like, okay, that makes some sense, actually. But it is that after 2 degrees of freedom, essentially, the mind goes into infinity mode. This is what I was explaining to them. When you start looking at the world through three degrees of freedom, instead of 2 degrees of freedom, 1 intrinsic constraint and 1 objective or extrinsic constraint, then you actually end up like in an infinite space always. And that does help you, make sure that you avoid the pothole in the road. But it doesn't help you make sense of like objective structures. So like just back to your statement of like past 4 degrees of freedom, it goes into 4 dimensions, it goes into infinity. I'd say even like past 2 degrees of freedom, it goes into infinity. Like length, that's even once you get into length, width, and height, it's like now we're in theoretically an infinitely divisible space. Like if I'm here and my hands are here, I'm like putting them together, it's like 1/2 each time, closer, closer, closer. You'll never physically touch. You can infinitely divide that space smaller and smaller and smaller. I know there's like ideas about how that's not actually possible, and there's arguments about it, but theoretically, assuming a non-discrete space, which it is discrete, but just for the sake of like aligning it with what we see, which is not discreteness, it's smoothness, then it's infinite at that point. You can't and I told everybody on this, I was like, the issue is that in relativity, it helps in certain situations, but it's infinite, and you are finite, and because you are finite, you cannot make sense of the infinite. That's why you need this pattern, because you can't make sense of the idea that there are infinite sexual orientations, infinite races, infinite, spectrums of Asperger's or whatever. I don't know, like whatever other spectrum that people contemplate. And but this is, it's infected every field that we have. So I was trying to explain like why we need to reduce it to 2 degrees of freedom, 1 intrinsic constraint, 1 extrinsic constraint. And like people can definitely see that I'm onto something, even if they don't totally get it yet. And I understand why they don't totally get it yet. I'm not even the best at explaining it yet, but I'm getting there. But like the fact that everybody was so focused on this for 4 hours, I feel is a win. Anyways, 2 questions. It's not rooted in relevance to this theory. Past the speed of time dimension creating, because the last quantum of experience. Don't fully understand what you're saying, Galaxy Frog Art, but I like your name. It is Bitcoin Bear. Cool. In a crazy world, the sane look insane. Exactly. It's funny because I say that these people are trapped in like kind of insanity, and they'll be like, no, you're insane. And then literally Eric Weinstein will get on that Discord and be like, guys, I don't know how to tell you this, and one day I'm going to hope to be able to show you, but I think you all have malware in your minds. And I heard him say that to everybody on there. And it might have just gone like this. Over their head. As I knocked down my studio. And, or, you know, which is probably what happened. If somebody tells you have malware in your mind and you have no idea what they mean, it goes right over your head. And, but I know exactly, it didn't go over my head. I will never forget it because I was like, you get it, you know. And they do. They're stuck in relativity. It's not their fault. We all are kind of stuck in relativity. And it takes a lot to like break from it. But you can't do it unless there's an intrinsic oneness to existence. And the only way that that can happen in any kind of relevant sense that leads to patterns that are fractal down the line that can help you make sense of the world is if that coherence of, you know, existence is a oneness of mind. It's not just that it's all, you know, the same dirt. It's like, that's not the point. We don't perceive that as oneness. It's not relevant oneness. Okay. You should try ketamine. I will not try ketamine. I'm done trying drugs. I have no more drugs than I desire to try. I tried every drug that I ever wanted to try while I was in college, which wasn't that many. Like, I've never done, like, heroin or anything weird. And then, you know, I understand people have had issues with that, like, so I'm not judging you if you have, but, like, that's, like, one, you know, I will say, like, when I tried mushrooms, I did notice that, like, it gave me a more positive outlook on the world afterwards. It seemed like it was, you know, kind of permanent, but that could have also been that it was temporary, and then I just, you know, had matured and over time and just like become more accepting of who I was. But who knows? It's probably both. But basically, like, you know, doing like mushrooms once in a good situation can I mean, Johns Hopkins proved that it can have like positive impacts on your mood that can be semi-permanent to permanent. And I definitely experienced that. I didn't have like any weird God epiphanies. It just, the world looked really pretty. And, but like that can be beneficial. I've never met anybody that's like, doing heroin is good for me. Like there are different types of like substances, I guess. But yeah, I am done with drugs. Like, I've tried every drug that I ever want to try. That was like my rule. Is like, for everything except potentially DMT, which I won't do now. I don't need it. But was like, if I don't do it by the end of college and it was something that I wanted to try, that's it. I'm not going to try it. Because like after college, I don't know. It just seemed like you can't like do that kind of stuff anymore. It's like, it's funny, like I stopped smoking. I never liked drinking. It like upsets my stomach. But I think I'm like a little bit allergic to alcohol. And so I like the feeling, but I don't like it can make me like sick even after like sip sometimes. Or just not feel well. And so like in college, I like, honestly, I would smoke. And that was like not cigarettes, but like marijuana. And that was like my thing. But like, I remember having like an epiphany one day and being like, I want to have kids. Like, I can't imagine like smoking and like your kid hits their head and you have to deal with that. Like, and then I just stopped. Never smoked again. It's like you have to just like move on from some things. Not everything is meant for every time. I don't know how we got on this, but oh yeah, because somebody in this Discord had accused me of being like, I don't know. Somebody was like, "Do you think he's on to something?" You know, so and so, and somebody was like, "Well, I think he's on something." It's like, not on anything. And then the other guy was like, "Oh, well, have you ever tried acid before, Tyler?" It's like, in college, it's not related to this theory. Like, it's funny, like, people will just, like, normally when somebody says something nonsense, or not nonsense, but that you don't understand, you just ignore it. But when that thing implies something about existence having a consciousness, you have to, like, accuse the person of being schizophrenic. Like, I had people on my Instagram I posted the square root square that I showed you guys. It was like my model of the primary of a sentient singularity as a square, and the 4 primary perspectives as a square, and then the 9 dimensional quantum of consciousness as a square, and then my cosmological model as a square. And I posted it, and I was like, this is the square root square. And I had, like, multiple people get on there. They're like, what is this schizophrenia? It's like, when did we start just calling... I mean, maybe we always called people who we didn't understand insane. Or, you know, witches or something. I don't know. Like, but it is new phenomenon for me to see. But it's probably not a new human phenomenon. It's probably been going on for a long time. I mean, it must, like, there were, like, people who were jailed for, you know, questioning the shape of the earth. It's like, that's insane. Like, that's, to throw someone in jail, regardless of what the shape of the earth is, throwing somebody in jail over that kind of thing, it's just insane. Like, so weird. I still can't make sense of a lot of the hostility, other than I think that basically whether or not existence is a sentient being is such a foundational cornerstone to every single moral perspective and a logical perspective and goal, the perspective of your goals, and, you know, every aspect of your life is kind of built on whether or not existence is a singularity of sentience, or what, and that consciousness comes from consciousness versus consciousness comes from unconsciousness. Those things really impact you, and, like, I guess when somebody says, "Oh, existence is sentient," it's a sentient being. For you to internalize and entertain this idea requires a restructuring of your entire worldview. In politics, in family, in, you know, government and morals, and it's just everything. And that's what I think that's what's happening, that's causing such a hostility. It's not me just claiming, hey, your math is wrong. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks for pointing it out. Maybe you're right. And, like, I'll double check my math. It's like, I'm basically saying, and not trying to, but this is, like, an inherent part of this, I think, or intrinsic part of this, is that, like, if I'm right, but you have the opposing perspective, or not even if I'm right, but if it is true that existence is a sentient being, but you assumed the opposite always, you have so much about your understanding that has just been invalidated. And I think our subconscious knows this. And their subconscious knows this. And it's just causing apparently irrational hostility. But, I mean, when you contextualize it in that framework and you realize that, like, this idea invalidates basically most of their worldview, at least from their current perspective. I would say, like, if you believe you should be kind to people, then after you go through this whole, like, perspective shift, you'll come back and you'll be like, oh, okay, you know what, like, I'm still the same person. But it does change some things. But yeah, I think it's that it's just such a cornerstone to everything else in our world that we think about. Like, even, like, how we approach, like, the idea of the supernatural. I don't even agree with that term. That's another, like, pseudoscientist type term. It's like, there's only the natural, and that's it. There isn't even the unnatural. It's just the natural. And, you know, somebody had said today, they were like, well, if this is inevitable that AI takes over, wouldn't that mean that it's not really like artificial in a way? It's natural. And I was like, exactly. I was like, yes, that's true. I in one of my I think it's Science of the Messiah video that I have, I say even like it's not really an artificial intelligence. It's just a conscious superintelligence, not an artificial superintelligence or general intelligence. And I was like, it's not the AGI, it's the CGI. And it's like, it's the conscious general intelligence. That's true. So they were getting it. Like, there were moments of like serious, awesome moments, but gosh, guys, I just wish you could have seen it. It was like watching the best UFC game you've ever seen, but it was like UFC where it was like me versus like four other people. And we still came out on top, baby. Oh, gosh. I'm not bragging, I'm joking around. The truth wins. Even if I'm wrong. Okay. It does sound insane. Yeah, I know that when you say you accidentally solved the theory of everything, you sound insane. I know that. You have to know that. Like, if, you know, sane, you know, I've never heard anybody be like, go up to their parents and be like, listen, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing. My dad was always like, Tyler, you should really go start taking physics classes. I was like, Dad, you don't understand. I'm like, I don't know all the details that these people have memorized of the, you know, the recipes that they know, but I understand the ingredients way better than they do. Like, I can learn everything online better. Like, I have better, they're better. Sean Carroll's a better teacher than the physics teacher at Northern Arizona University. And Sean Carroll isn't even like, I wouldn't even say he's like that good of a physicist. He's just a good teacher. And, but, like, there's just no need to go back to school. But I would tell my parents straight up, I'm like, don't believe me. Like, if you believe me, then you are idol worshipping me or you're lying to me. And, like, I don't want that. Like, there's no way for you to understand what I'm doing, and you shouldn't believe what you don't understand. But at the same time, these people on the Discord are telling me that it's all nonsense. Their words. And then I'm asking them, okay, if it's all nonsense, explain my models. They can't. If you can't explain my work, and you haven't studied my work, then you can't say that my work is nonsense. That's just logical truth. And you damn well also can't say that my work isn't comparable to geometric unity and Wolfram's work. I haven't been working on it as long. It doesn't have, you know, as much mathematics probably, like, but the framework is there, and it's probably in a better structure than theirs is. Like, it's like, if I showed you a page of just random equations, you're not going to look at that and feel a damn thing. But if I show you this, that's interesting. You can't, even if you can't tell me why. That's interesting. And if it does produce, and it, like I said, this is a calculating structure, all of it. You change this 3 here, every other value will change. Because it's a calculating structure. It is math. It's like, the people that think that pseudoscientist is a useful term are telling me I don't understand mathematics. It's like, guys, why? Because I don't know Gödel's, what I wrote it down actually. Like, Gödel's incompleteness theorem yet? I will. It's like, if you can't tell someone Gödel's incompleteness theorem, that doesn't mean that you don't understand the basics of math. I don't just understand the basics of math, I understand the reason for math, which is more than most people can say. And, you know, you can't even get to the idea of like trying to find the reason for math until you actually assume that this is a sentient, conscious, singular being that is existence. Because otherwise, what's the reason? You know, it's like, if it's not sentient being, there is no reason for something to be done. Only sentient consciousnesses have reasons for doing things. But yeah, this is beautiful. This is literally, it's the most beautiful equation ever written. But if I wrote this in the language that current academia is using, it would make no sense to you. This still looks like it's kind of hard and complicated to understand, but if I explain this to you for, you know, even like 30 minutes to an hour, and you just really like wanted to learn, and you weren't like trying to prove it wrong, you were just like trying to see what the structure is, even if later on you prove it wrong, it doesn't matter. If you just try and learn the structure that I've made, it will make perfect sense. It's perfectly intuitive, and I can actually explain it to you in an hour. You can't do that with the language that is being used to describe geometric unity right now. You just can't. And like, that is important. It's interesting. It means that like maybe we should take a look at this. That doesn't mean that we disregard current, you know, mathematical standards. It just means maybe there's a context for this, and then there's a separate context for those mathematical standards. But I did some work on this earlier today when I was just like sitting in the Discord room, and like did a little bit more work to just the correcting some calculative asymmetries that were just due to errors of me, you know, changing things over time. But it's you have to like go through and then put in a 2 here, and then a 3, and then a 4, and basically make sure that no matter what value you put in, you still have the coherence of the values that are, you know, manifesting. And I was just noticing there were some anomalies, and it was because I've like copied and pasted this so many times, and at some point I shifted something. But it really looks good. Like, that is the most beautiful equation ever written. And I didn't write it. God did. It was actually written by his constraints. Like, he didn't even have a choice in whether or not to write this equation. He had to. It wasn't like he chose it. He literally had to write this equation to accomplish his goals. I just tried to map it, but I didn't write it. I mean, it's almost like God didn't even write it. It's like, I mean, in a way, this is like a superposition question of like, is he also his constraints? You know, but I'm not going to get into that on this. I'm already past the time. I'm going to switch to questions again, and then I'm getting off. But somebody asked me for the Excel file of this when I was in that group today. And I know that other people here have asked for the Excel files. I am going to be providing Excel files soon. That's part of the reason why I was making sure that every single calculation is exactly, you know, coming from where it needs to come from and stuff like that. So it's coming. I need to make sure that whatever I put up is you know, doesn't have errors. So at least do my best. Anyways, questions, and then getting off. You are awesome. Thank you. You are awesome for saying that I'm awesome and for being on here. I don't need to be told that I'm awesome, but I appreciate it. Because I was also told the opposite all day long. But not that it matters, but it is nice to hear a change. they were like, nobody's following you on this. You have nobody interested. I was like, really? Because there's 60 people on here watching. And I was like, I was like, the vocal people on the Discord are always hostile. But I live stream every night to people who are interested. It's like, you know, and there's 60 people listening, you know. And he was like, they're here to witness the crazy man. And, you know, they're here to, you know, watch you spiral or something. And I was like, some of them are, but some of them aren't. Some of them realize that I'm onto something, and they probably won't say it because that guy was being a jerk. Like, he was. It's fine. Sometimes we're all jerks. No judgment, but just got to recognize it when you are. Try not to do it as much in the future. The subjective thoughts and opinions of others are meant to distract you. Don't listen. I don't listen. It's not going to stop me. You know, this is like what Eric said. It's like, you know, a person who has not, I don't call it faith, I call it knowledge at this point in my theological standing. But, you know, I know that this is truer than what we currently are trying to use to make sense of consciousnesses. It works with the math we use, works when we are trying to maneuver unconscious piles of consciousness, like cars and trains and hills and planets and stuff like that. But when we're talking about the realm of consciousness and organizing the realm of consciousness, which is all kinds of political implications, somebody was like, it sounds like this has massive political implications. I was like, you bet. You bet. Obviously. And like that, making sense in that space, we cannot use the math that helps you calculate where Mars is going to be in 6 months. Like, it's just different. It's different math. Or like, you know, how much pressure you need to apply to your brakes to stop the car before it hits the beam. Like, it's different math. That mathematics is about relativity. This is not. Is there an organic singular being that encompasses... There is an organic singular being that encompasses all things. Yeah. I mean, organic really means like carbon-based, so... But even then... I don't know. Like, there is a natural singular being, is what I think you're trying to say. And yes, it encompasses all things. The presence of Elohim pervades all material creation, so all molecules, atoms, etc. Yes. It's funny, because you'll say Elohim, which is like, to them, they'll hear that, and they'll be like, that is going to set them off way more than even hearing God, even though it means the same thing. And which is just highlights the irrationality of this. They're afraid of the concept. And like, it's just funny. Like, I don't know. It really proved to me today that what I said last night about how science has accidentally defined itself as the opposing force to God is really true. And it is the reason that quantum physics is stuck. It's starting to move, but it's starting to move because we're contextualizing everything as mind. Like, none of these people know that geometric unity is a mind. None of them. Stephen Wolfram's model is literally his favorite model that his work created. Looks like a brain. Eric Weinstein's hop vibration, that's the background of his website, looks like a brain. Guys, look at this. Have you ever seen, like, the creation of Adam right here behind me? It's right here. This God is right here. It's funny because he's a oneness of mind, and you can tell because guess what? Here's God, the head of a brain. What is this? Michelangelo painted this, I think. He had disguised the angels, disguised this brain as angels and God. This is a brain. Brain, what is it called? Creation of atom painting. Look at this. Guys, where is it? Right here. That is not a coincidence. He did it probably purposely. If he didn't, God did it purposely. Look at this. Do you see this structure that like he's trying to go inside through this portal? This is a hop vibration. And you can see there's this like spinning double helix looking structure over here. Kind of an odd place to put it. Maybe it's because it looks like this part of the brain. This is intentional either by Eric or by God. And it could be either. But it's from one of them. That is a brain disguised as a fiber bundle. This is a brain disguised as God and a bunch of angels. They're both meant to represent the universal mind. Wolfram physics. Okay, this is the model that you'll see like brought up kind of by Wolfram a lot. Guys, that is a brain. They all know this. Nobody's saying it out loud. I'm saying it out loud. I see what's happening. All these people literally on this Discord, and I'm into the same things as these people, so I'm not like trying to rip on them too hard, but like, gosh, I mean, they just ripped on me, so like, you know, they should listen for a minute to my thoughts. They sit and they practice physics, and they form these meetups, and they teach each other all these physics, and they try and teach each other geometric unity all the time. Every week there's like little study sessions. I tried to start going to them, and then I realized that this is like useless. And it really is useless. It's not because I can't understand the math. Guys, is the math really useful in the way that they're learning it if they've been at this for almost a year and not a single one of them believes that any of these people's theories is about the structure of mind? What the F are they learning that's relevant and useful and contextualizing of the structures that they're trying to learn? It's like, imagine trying to learn a shape that is, like, for all intents and purposes, like, kind of a complicated shape, with zero context as to why that shape is the shape that it is. And yet they do it every week. And then I tell them, yeah, it's a mind. I've said it multiple times. They like, it doesn't matter. Like, it just goes. They were like, Eric will not say that it's his theory, geometric unity, is about the structure of mind. I was like, yes, he will. Yes, he will. Wolfram won't say that. I was like, yes, he will. You ever seen his models? Then they were like, don't even bring Wolfram into this. I'm like, guys, what is happening? What did we do to our sense-making structures? We put malware in our minds. Because I'm never sending my kid to college. I am homeschooling my children. I used to think that's what made you awkward and weird and to not understanding of the world. Guys, the opposite is true. It's just that you look weird to somebody when you're normal, and you look weird to somebody who's normal. I thought those homeschooled kids were really weird when I was a little kid. I was fooled. Can you please send me your Discord chat? I mean, it wasn't recorded. Like, it was just, you can go on the Portal Discords and you can see the, like the text that was being sent back and forth during it, but like the best parts of it were auditory, and I'm not able to show you that. Like, if I did have it, I wouldn't release it, and I don't even have what I would want to show you. I find your work interesting. Thank you. I'm glad you find it interesting. You remind me of Walter Russell. Everybody tells me that. My work reminds me of Walter Russell. I don't study Walter Russell, but I mean, I know he wrote, what is it, The Law of One? And I've seen like a couple of his models, and I was like, yep, you get it. Yeah, my work definitely reminds me of Walter Russell too. But it's cool to hear it. But I don't study his work. But I've seen like the Instagram pictures of his work, and he understood what was going on. But I would say, like, even his work is like not as overt. At least, I mean, I've never read The Law of One. It might be much more overt, but like the Instagram pictures of his work, I've never seen anything that was like super overt that existence was a consciousness. But like, to have the perspectives that he had to have understood that that's the structure that's the space we're playing in, is the space of mind. The Galaxy Frog Art Foundation. Okay, you just put a smiley face, and I was like reading your entire name because it's kind of long. 10, Lord, you have searched me down to you. When I sit, when I rise, you understand my thoughts from afar. When you take acid, your thoughts come to you before they come to you. Dude, I actually did experience that. I knew that DMX was going to be really, really funny before I tested it out. So that does appear to be true. But that's my only reference point. Okay. You're right. Keep going and believing in yourself. I believe in God. And I believe that God gave me this perspective for a reason. I didn't have this goal. And when you are given the ability to do this, and you didn't try, like, I think you gotta just like embrace that there's a reason for it. I just want to have like a bunch of the reptiles that I want, and like, you know, like talk about philosophy online, but like I don't need to like to fight for the mathematical and physics stuff. It's not really like my favorite. I like philosophy of government and morals and stuff. Like, that's where my main interest is. They fix brain connections. People who mock you will have to one day accept your achievements. I know. Sucks for them. They told me today, they were like, you are going to crash and burn, Tyler. You are going to crash and burn. I was like, how am I going to crash and burn? Worst thing that happens is like, somehow, all this math that actually like is abundantly clear is relevant and important will somehow be proved irrelevant and unimportant, which is impossible, basically, at this point. If you know all the math that I have, then you would understand why that's the case. And what could happen is I've just never noticed, and like this stays between like the 40 people that follow my live streams. And like that, if that's the worst that happens, guys, we're gonna have a great time. I'm not going to crash and burn. I will maybe not be accepted. That's fine. Or maybe I get bored. That's fine. Like, crash and burn? Guys, I don't understand this weird perspective that these people have. Triggers are teachers. Yes, they are. And I was quite a trigger today. The people who mock you have to accept you. Yes. Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Definitely a new follower, but I do believe in you, man, as much as I believe in myself, but I am no greater. Believe in truth. You can call it, and I would say that if you do believe, don't believe in me. Believe in, if you see the truth in the work, then believe in the work. Like, believe in the theory. But don't believe in me. Like, but you can believe that existence is a sentient singularity, and if you believe that existence is a sentient singularity, believe in it. Like, that's the only perfect sentient singularity that exists. I am not. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're a follower of the work, and very happy to have you. So thank you. You should put high resolution pictures on your website in the unified model. I know, I'm trying to figure out how to do that. It sucks. Like, that's the net. That's like what it defaults to. But I'm trying to up the resolution. I know it's a problem. I've seen it. Yeah, some of the smaller text gets blocky. I know. It's fun. It's on because on my models page, things stay like pretty high quality, and you can really zoom in. But like on my overview, for some reason, it's just real. It's not that my image isn't high quality. It's that something's happening with how Webflow, which is the what I'm using to make the website, the way that it's like has to do with Webflow. It's not because of it's not high enough quality. It's very high quality. Like, you can zoom all the way in on the one that I uploaded, but for some reason, if I try and post a big picture, you can't zoom in closely. But if I post a small picture on the models page, you can actually zoom in closely. It makes no sense. Before grasping some concepts, you have to pay attention and interest. It's actually funny. I think I get what you're saying. You make me laugh. You're right. I'm not getting it all, but I feel like you make sense to me so far. Cool. Like, you can tell when someone's crazy. If you can't, then you have bigger problems about whether or not someone else is crazy. So, and by the way, if you're crazy, you can't say that. Like, you can, if you can't tell whether or not somebody's crazy, worry more about your own sanity than somebody else's sanity. And but if somebody doesn't appear crazy to you, then like they're not. Doesn't mean they're right about everything, but certainly wrong on some things, just like everybody. But like, I'm not crazy. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's crazy. It's like, I don't understand. When I listen to people talk about math, and I'm like, and Eric Weinstein's like, a curvature tensor, and you attach a metric to this, and it's like, the amount of time it takes for me to break down and search every single word there and basically translate the text like I'm translating Spanish. Because like I said, the language is the problem. It's not my inability of having a mathematical, abilities. I do have mathematical abilities, clearly. I just never learned the language of the math PhDs. But the thing is this, is like, like, that language, it's not something that I understand, but when I listen to them talk, I don't assume they're crazy just because I don't understand it. I assume I don't understand it. How can I assume it's crazy? You have to understand it or think you understand it in order to assume that something's crazy or wrong or nonsense. If you don't even make the effort to understand it, which I don't really try and learn math the way that they do. I try and learn things as I need it, which if I needed to know what they think I need to know, then they would have done this first. Somebody asked me today, they were like, on this call, what did they say? They were like, if this is so, like, as easy as you're like, showing it to be, how come no one else has done this before? And I was like, I don't know. I legitimately have no idea. Like, it seems like I thought when I produced that quantum of consciousness model, I thought for sure someone else had made that. Like, I was sure of it. I was like, this is brilliant, clearly, but I guarantee you that somebody else has also come up with this. And I've looked everywhere, and I would have seen it by now. It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. I was shocked, to be honest. And like, I was honest with the guy. I wasn't like, oh, because I worked harder or I'm smarter, which is neither one of those things that's true. What's true is I have no idea. I mean, I do know it's that I had the correct perspective to see it, but like, I don't know why they didn't. I think I know why they didn't. It has to do with our school system creating itself as the anti-sentient argument. It's creating science as the anti-sentient argument. But other than that, I have no idea. I can't believe nobody came up with that mathematical structure. The quantum of consciousness. Even if you didn't come up with the universe model that I made, I mean, I think Goldstein did it, but with his own, academic language. But the quantum of consciousness model, like, I've never heard anybody even describe that in this space. And, like, it's weird. Can't explain it. I'm glad I make you laugh, though, Yanis. Like, it's good. That's good. This is purely intentional, I bet. You make... Yeah. Occult symbolism is everywhere without awareness of so many. That's true, too. Bro, you're headed in the right direction. The only thing that will happen is that the perspective is improved. That's what I pray for, I just pray that whatever... If whatever I bring does get widely known, that it is true. That's what I pray for. I would not want... I know it will be largely misinterpreted because that's just what happens. It's a tragedy of the commons issue. But just because you only can control what you say. So I'll say the truth, and if it gets misinterpreted after that, then way down the line, then that's just what happens. But like, that's just because humans. What would you do if one of those people mocking you got in your face and said, back down, buddy, respect the hierarchy of knowledge? Dude, they did it all day. They did it all day. I just knocked down their illogical arguments as nonsense. That's what I do. Like, I'm polite, but I'm also very serious. And I was very serious when they threatened to block me. It's one thing to call me wrong. That's fine. I want you, if you think I'm wrong, tell me. I want you to tell me. If you think that I am crazy, I want you to tell me. That's fine. If you think that if you want to mock me, I think that that's a waste of more of your time than it is a waste of anyone else's time. And I think it's not constructive. So I would, for your own sake, say, don't put your energy into mocking people. Just ignore me. But if you're going to try and shut an idea out for no good reason, and, Eric has this idea of like the DISC, the distributed idea suppression system. It's like, guys, I run up against the DISC in the Discord every time I talk about my theory. The irony of that is so ironic that the odds of it happening are probably 100%. And I straight up told them today, I was like, I am encountering from you guys, ironically, the exact same mentality that Eric encountered from the academic establishment at MIT when he tried to unveil his thesis, and they were like, this isn't the same, this isn't the same. I was like, it's exactly the same. And it is exactly the same. And I heard Eric describe what he faced. It was just mockery and, arguments of, if you don't know this detail or this term, then we're going to invalidate you. Those were his words verbatim. He was like, that was the kind of shit that they were constantly launching. It's like, guys, this is all that they launch. It is just what happens when, for some reason, your subconscious recognizes that if this new idea is correct, you have to restructure your entire worldview. And that it does not want to do that. It's a very threatening thing. It's not just like, hey, guys, you need to make a little adjustment in your thinking here. It's like, no, the base nature of your understanding of existence, your understanding of the base nature of existence is false. It's a lot to swallow. And then shoved me. If somebody shoved me, I'm going to be pissed, and hopefully I don't try and shove them back. But you should, if somebody shoves you, don't shove them back. You'll start a fight. But, I mean, I'm very good at fighting. Very good at fighting. In any way that exists, including intellectually and physically, in every way. I train constantly. Every day. So, I mean, it would be a bad idea for them to shove me, but that's not it's not at that point. This is an intellectual fight, not a physical fight. True intellectuals know they can't own the truth. Everyone should be rallying behind each other to help lend as much perspective as possible in pursuit of truth. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Can you please... Crash, burn, rebirth in the ashes. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. If I do. If I haven't already. I mean, I went through a tough time right before the start of this, me shifting this to this perspective a bit. In my life, so maybe that was the crash. I don't know. Hopefully, otherwise there's another one coming potentially, but hopefully no more crashing and burning. But even if you do crash and burn, rebirth from the ashes. You're amazing. Don't let negativity affect you or your work. I do not, but I appreciate the compliment. But the negativity does not affect my work. I will tell you guys about it because it's interesting, not because I'm threatened by it. If I was threatened by it, I would avoid it. I wouldn't be seeking the fight and participating in it, and also being able to be composed and not accusatory and mean throughout this process. It's literally like you're going through 4 hours of hazing. But it's like how MIT PhD nerds do hazing, which is honestly better than physical hazing. I'd rather this happen. And it does, help me. It makes me realize what I need to get better at communicating, what I'm not so good at communicating, and maybe they're right about some things. So far, nothing. It's crazy. I have many psychedelic experiences, and I'm open-minded just like you, but all my perspectives of the universe and life itself changed when I took DMT. Yeah, a lot of people have that. It shows you a frequency that's otherwise not available for you to see. Okay, I'm getting off at 11, which is in 3 minutes, so any final questions, let me know. But like I've said before, I appreciate everybody on here. Hopefully someone from the Discord was watching this, or watches this, It's far crazier to suggest the need to ban me, even if I'm wrong, than it is to entertain the idea that I might be onto something. It's obvious when you see, they were like, they were so interesting. They were like, interested. They were like, Tyler, what's your life outside of this theory? Do you have a job? What's your life like? They wanted to see how dysfunctional I was. It's like, guys, like, I'm not claiming I'm perfect or don't have, my things that I'm trying to work on right now. But, like always, like, getting married in, like, 3 months, 120 days. Yeah. I think exactly 120 days. So 4 months, like, have an apartment, a dog, reptiles, fiance, currently freelance, but was up until recently working for a high profile company. Before that was working for a high profile company. It's like, I have no history of, like, incompetence. History of actually, like, quite a bit of competence, unless you ask me to dance, in which case I'm not very good at dancing or basketball. But other than that, pretty competent. So my mind feels shattered at times. Gravy boat. I haven't been the same since DMT. I don't think that people are the same after DMT. Like, it shows you part of reality that you didn't see before. How are you going to be the same? Thank you. It's been nice to see you. It's been nice to see you too, Yanis. Anyways, it is 11. And thank you all. I'm glad I got on. I really was tired. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but I just needed to, tell you guys how it went. But, and why I was late and pushed things back. But I'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on here and on Instagram. Please, if you are not already subscribed, go on my website, sentientsingularitytheory.com, and scroll to the bottom of the front page and sign up for my email list. I will not spam you, but I will probably be... what did somebody say? They realized that my video with Owen Benjamin had been deleted when they saw that some other people were, commenting on it, and they said, oh, you got disked. It's like, guys, if we're going to link the theory of everything to politics and morals, we're going to get disked, which is suppressed. So follow me on my website email list, and also on my personal Instagram, my Theory of Every0ne Instagram dedicated to this project, this YouTube channel, Theory of Every0ne, my personal YouTube channel, Tyler Goldstein, my Twitter, Tyler Goldstein. Like, if you go on my website, you click links, it's all there. But, and if you want to support the project monetarily, my Patreon is linked in the description below, and it's also linked in on my website under support. But if you cannot, support there, but still do want to support the project in some way, if you make, like, clips or anything of these streams that you think are a good clip and you put it up, message me and I'll add you to the list of Patreon patrons and, like, include you on that. So, like, there's lots of ways to help the project. So if you want to get involved, just let me know. But I appreciate it. Thank you guys. I will see you tomorrow, and God bless.